Open Space and Trails.
Hi, Carly.
And Jessie thought she might come on, but just sort of be in the background. And I had gotten a RSVP from Dorothea, but obviously she's somewhere else. But I think we can go forward. Does anyone have any committee comments other than what's on the agenda?
I do not.
I never saw the agenda. Did you send it?
Yeah, it went out, like, sounds like it went out on Monday.
Oh,
I know. I just looked at it tonight too.
Find it.
I know. I did the same thing, but I just found it. It's on Bonnie's email from Monday.
Okay. That's all right.
I know. I missed it too.
We don't have a lot going on, but we do need to re-elect our officers. Hint, hint. If someone wants to make a motion or make a change.
I like keeping Jason as our leader, our fearless leader.
Okay. Right now, Jason's the chair and Nancy's the co-chair or the vice chair, so.
That's good.
I'm fine with that. What's the time? What's the term limits? Or
we don't really have term limits on the officers, just because there aren't enough of you.
so how do we know when we need to make a election?
Oh, we just do it every year
Oh, gotcha.
in the
Okay.
spring. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Yeah.
All right, so Kathy, you can make a motion.
Okay, I move that we keep our officers the same, Jason as chairperson and Nancy as co-chair, or what is she? Vice chair.
Vice
Yeah.
chair.
Or vice. Okay. I'm fine with
Chairman
that.
of vice, is that how it is?
Mhm.
Okay, does someone want a second?
I second.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Thanks.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I took our guidelines document to P&Z on Tuesday night,
Nice.
and it was very well received. So we're moving ahead in the process. We have done kind of a check-in with community development and the land use code. So we have a bunch of land use code amendments that are going alongside our guidelines that relate to Redstone, and I think are going to be better and more cleaned up. The
Mhm.
big thing we got rid of was this 999 square foot exemption for subgrade space, which never really made a lot of sense in the first place. So we got rid of that. And we reduced the minimum parking requirements for the VC and for the VC zone. Instead of 2 cars per dwelling unit, we have 1 car per dwelling unit. And instead of 1 car per 400 square foot of space, we have 1 car per commercial enterprise. So but those are the minimums, but that gives us some flexibility in terms of what we want to allow to happen on the site. We don't have to have, 10 cars on a site for a mixed use building. So those are the 2 big ones. And then we did get rid of I got rid of the whole minor development section and just put in basic repairs that are only an administrative review. So we don't have people putting up a bunch of awnings and other stuff without our review. So those are and plus the sign code, of course. So it looks like we're going to BOCC in May. And we have to go to the caucus in between, but I'm not quite sure what the schedule on that is or how elaborate that is. So that's the update on that.
And Susanna, do you anticipate, I would imagine that with the Planning Commission, some of these things we've been working on for a while and are probably not big surprises and are consistent with other code cleanup that's happening. For the caucus, I would expect that there would be some pretty specific or detailed questions. Do you anticipate needing to make a little bit more of a background presentation to that group?
I don't really know. I haven't gotten a good sense of what they're looking for, and what kind of a review, whether it's just whether they just say we have seen it, or whether they say we approve or disapprove. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's possible that we might have to make more of a specific presentation on things.
So I think I don't know, you guys might know, but I think they just had a caucus meeting like a week ago.
Yeah.
So what is it, Kathy, every 2 months?
Yeah, it'll be in May.
So it's
Probably
going to
the
be in
second-
May.
Second Thursday. Okay. Wait,
Okay, so we have to keep that in mind, Susanna.
Okay.
The second Thursday in May will,
I think that's what it was.
yeah, it was like on the 11th or 12th, I thought, last week. I
Okay.
didn't go, but. So that's,
It was on the 10th of
or the
March,
10th, okay, okay,
Okay.
which was a Thursday.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so that might push our BOCC schedule by 2 weeks.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Okay. But we're moving forward. It's great.
yeah. Woohoo, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, is this the thing we did 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. Yep. Yeah, we basically wrapped it up the week before COVID
Wow,
started
right.
the news.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, so that'll be a major accomplishment when we get there. Okay. And if there are no other comments, we'll just move right ahead. Before we start this, I want to be sure we get on the record with our conflicts of interest, and I don't know how they, technically we're not allowed to meet, more than 3 of us together. And I know at the planning meetings, there would have been 3 of us together. So somehow we have to just make a statement about that those potential conflicts are on the record, and that you've looked at this and participated in a community meeting. And for Nancy and Kathy, and then because Jason's a member of the design team, then obviously he won't vote.
mhm,
But I
Mhm.
want to be sure that we get that all on the record.
okay.
Okay. Bonnie, do you think that's clear enough?
I think so, and I think I had a typo in Dorothea's email, so I resent her the links just to see that she got everything.
Okay, thanks. All right. So obviously we've looked at this a couple of times, and most of you are pretty familiar with the project.
Can you recap it since I didn't see your?
Yeah. Let me put up on my screen here the kind of planning materials that we looked at last time. Oops. Oh, there it is. So this is kind of the schematic that came out of the work of the committee. And it basically addressed all of Redstone Park. Can you see my mouse?
Yes.
If I'm pointing at things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And essentially, the project consists of a lot of cleanup, kind of reorganizing the playground area, doing a new pavilion, doing some more, or at least cleaned up parking, taking out some trees, repairing the river edge and river access, and kind of providing a more consistent set of benches and tables and things like that in the park. And I don't think I missed anything significant, but feel free to jump in if I left something out.
Yeah, did you mention the replacement of the picnic pavilion structure?
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be right here. And you can see better, this is the proposed, or at least this was the schematic plan at the time, where the playground kind of gets enclosed and grouped together. Some better organized parking. This is the new gazebo shade structure. And then kind of an arena type space down at the far end with some seating and skating area. So that's sort of the draft plan. And then
Susanna, I want to point out one thing while you have that draft plan up.
okay.
It may have changed. And again, I'm joining you all after you've spent so much work on this, but the one small change that's happened, I think since you all had a chance to look at this, is the skate shed is being shifted. And the same building will be kept. There's some drainage issues. It's in a low point. So what we're hoping to do to extend the life of the building is pour a concrete foundation, lift the current building, move it onto that so that the water and ice in winter will stop building up and flooding the floor.
So is it moving
How's it shifting?
north or south?
It will be moving north.
Okay, kind of into
Yeah, let's see. Yeah.
that area.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's a small shift, maybe about 5 to
I think
7.
it's about 5.
Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, 5 to 7 feet is accurate, and then its relationship to the street stays the same. So
Okay.
same distance back from the edge of paving, and same, basically perpendicular orientation to the center line of the road.
And then very happily, we're going to get a dumpster enclosure right adjacent to that.
I was just going to ask about that. That'd be good.
So here's the more formal set of drawings, and we can switch back and forth as need be, but we get to one that looks, so I can pull this up a little. So I kind of went through the guidelines, and obviously the guidelines don't really address this kind of project, but there are several things that kind of stuck out. Let's see. So we're getting a bunch of kind of benches and tables, or I don't know, a bunch, but let me get to that page here. Kind of furniture things that fall under this site elements. And for the most part, I found that these were all, nicely compatible with the district and simple in design. And so I didn't, from a guidelines point of view, really have an issue with any of that. The things that are kind of missing from this application are signage and lighting, but that's something that we can review as we go forward and as those things are specified. The biggest item is the new gazebo, and it's kind of located, I'm going to kind of just go back to this old plan because it's easier, above and in front of the parking by the museum. This is obviously the museum and the restrooms stay. And so it's going to have a fairly prominent location visibly from the boulevard. And I was initially a little bit concerned about the competition between the museum building and the gazebo, but I think the openness of the gazebo and the simple detailing and simple materials actually will be fine. I think that you'll still really see the museum from the street because it's closer, and it's probably almost as tall because it has quite a steeply pitched roof. This is set back from the street a fair ways. There was one reference at one point to kind of a lantern on top of the gazebo, and I couldn't find any additional information on that. So Carl, you might be able to enlighten us a bit about that.
As far as I'm aware, there's no lantern planned on the top, but there is a cupola planned on the peak.
Yeah, I think that's it's in there just in name, because the image that's on the screen right now was closest to the overall character and level of detail that the steering committee was interested in seeing for the building. But there was some pretty strong consensus from the steering committee for the cupola. And I think that's, Susanna, lantern and cupola interchangeable.
Yeah.
Not that it's lit from within, but that it's a ventilating element in that upper. And we had originally, in some of the documents that the steering committee reviewed, had an image of a gazebo that had a cupola element, but it was actually very Victorian in nature and did not feel appropriate. And so we've just gone to describing it, and have had some conversations with a fabricator about what that would look like.
Okay.
So again, low ornamentation, similar to what you see in the timber structure, but there was a pretty strong desire from the steering committee to have that element in the roof structure.
And then when I looked at this online at the company's website, there's sort of a drop finial in the center. Is that something that's going to continue to be part of the design?
They sent us back because we asked for some detailing of what the inside of the ceiling structure would look like, because we were interested in that particular manufacturer because they provide a tongue and groove deck, which is a whole lot nicer than just sheet sheathing on the underside for the roof deck itself, and then the asphalt shingling over the top. And then in their timber detailing, particularly the ones that have the cupola, it's almost like a pendant. It's almost like a timber pendant. It does not hang down below the elevation of the beams. And so it wouldn't be visible kind of, in elevation down below. It's up in the roof structure, but there is that element that's a part of the structural detailing that they've been looking at. Yeah.
Okay.
And Susanna, was that kind of almost like a reflected ceiling plan photograph, like laying on your back, looking up at it?
Yeah, I think it kind of was.
That's what they sent to us as well.
Yeah, it had sort of brackets coming together in the center with that little drop. You can kind of see it in this picture, but it doesn't really show. So I think overall the level of detail and the materials are appropriate and don't really compete with the museum or the district in general. I think it's modest, and the brackets kind of tie it visually into some of the language of the rest of the boulevard. So I'm comfortable with the design as represented from a staff point of view. And that applies to the materials and the gazebo. One of the big things related to our recent revision of the guidelines is that all of this area has a split rail fence around it. And we had kind of talked about in the guidelines, we'd actually said that in the new guidelines, we'd said that the split rail fencing was not really appropriate for the boulevard. But I've kind of changed my attitude on that a little bit, because there's also a split rail fencing across the street at the store. And I wonder if in a more public space, I think a picket fence would be kind of strange in this case. And right. I'm wondering if we might want to make a distinction between the commercial zone and the residential zone as relates to our fence guidelines, because I wouldn't want to see this be a front yard fence. I think it would just look kind of fussy and strange. And so I suggested that we make an exception for this area for the split rail fence. And I also have actually gone ahead and changed the guidelines to specify that the split rail fence, or that the picket fence is, or the split rail fence is not appropriate in the residential zone district. And left us kind of a door so that we could leave some split rail fence in more of the public areas. So if you guys are comfortable with that, I'll stick with that change. If you want to discuss that further, that's something we should touch on tonight.
I'm fine with what you just said.
Okay.
I think
Me
that makes
too.
sense both for the park and for the guidelines. And
Yep.
the question that I have, I think one of the things we were trying to do is get away from the likelihood of split rail fences in a residential setting, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
you know, what is it? 30+% of the residential homes along the boulevard are in the VC district. And do we want to make a distinction not only between the district zone districts, but also between the use?
We could do that. It becomes a bit of a challenge just because things, have the
Change.
potential to change.
Yeah.
We could tie it maybe to frontage or some other metric that we have.
I don't know. That may be it may be a rule looking for a problem. I don't necessarily see a expected proliferation of split rail fences along the VC district in residential setting anyway. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
And
Me
thank you
too.
for kind of finding that.
So Carly, if there's anything that you want to kind of call out, the other thing we probably should go over is the tree removals and some of the landscaping changes and landscaping features. And I know we have lots of kind of embedded stairs in the landscape, and get back to here. Some access to the river, stairs, some new kind of river edge detailing. I felt for the most part it was all pretty subtly and nicely handled, so there really isn't an issue with that from my point of view. We do have some railing elements that will be visible above the grade, and railroad tie elements for edging, all of which I think are appropriate both for the boulevard and through the guidelines. So I don't know if there is a good image here of the trees, but we might want to talk a little bit about the significant trees that are getting removed.
Yeah, I think we can even at the front of the package there will be a demo and tree removal plan, but this is a good place to start.
Okay.
And I have that demo and tree removal too in a slide, but
okay. Yeah, and I think just because that document is it's a little bit difficult to read as a graphic. It's as a technical line drawing. There are two significant conifer trees in the vicinity of the ice skating rink that are identified for removal. There's a fir tree between the ice skating rink and the boulevard. It would be basically straight down page of icon 34 on this plan.
Can you point that out, Susanna?
Sorry, my page just jumped. Oops.
We spent a lot of time on this area.
Oh, so down here.
So if you look at the actual number 34, kind of right in the middle of the lawn.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
goes straight
Yeah.
towards the boulevard from there. There's a significant fir tree that's actually leaning at about a 25-degree angle over the ice skating rink, and we identified that as it's a kind of a potential hazard tree. It's not formally been called a hazard tree. And when we talked to Ron about it, it's problematic for the maintenance of the ice skating rink. and it's in a kind of a crowded zone there with the juniper trees next to it. So we identified that as for removal. And then on the opposite side, so that would be icon 21 in this image, and where the arrow is pointing, there's those kind of beamstone seats along the west edge of the ice skating rink. There's a spruce tree there, and it looks healthy when you're standing kind of on the ice skating rink or on the boulevard. It has been almost 50% of that tree has been removed by Holy Cross over time
Oh, no.
because it's encroaching into that aerial easement for a now defunct power line. And so its canopy has been significantly negatively impacted by its interaction with the power line and its life experiences with the Holy Cross arborists. And it also just happens to be in a spot that there's an opportunity, because it's not a high quality tree, to increase that lawn space and then potentially even increase the future size of the rink if RCA so chose to do so. So those are the two real significant. They are fairly large trees. On their face, you wouldn't just go up and say those need to be taken out, but for the long-term benefit of the project, they both made a whole lot of sense. The very large spruce tree that's between the shed and the ice skating rink will be protected. So that's shown as a symbol here on the plan.
Uh-huh.
And that's an important one to keep. It shades the rink and it's a very healthy tree. So those are the big ones there. And then immediately to the kind of up and left, so south and west of the shed, there are those two tree symbols there. And in that vicinity, there's a lance leaf cottonwood that's in really, really bad structural shape. And lance leaf cottonwoods tend to do that. They the way they grow, they tend to have structural problems. And so that one has been identified as a removal because it's unhealthy. And it's also in a location that creates a barrier of connectivity between the north end of the park and the central portion of the park. So those are the big removals there. And we'll have to double check on the tree removal sheet to make sure I'm catching them all.
Okay. Well,
And then Susanna, if you could go, back to the kind of the central portion of the park. This really comes down to a couple of genuine hazard trees that are in terrible shape, which are there's cottonwood along the boulevard between the playground structure itself, the slide, and the fence. And that one's just been breaking off piece by piece in its crown over years, and is actually dangerous. So that was a strong recommendation for removal. And then and that's kind of right where there's that icon 28 little icon bug right by the playground. Yeah, that's it right there. And then in the vicinity of the new gazebo, we've had on-site meetings with Holy Cross and identified what would be required, because there's a guideline support for the existing overhead line, and it's that red dot that's right in the middle of the proposed gazebo. So that right now there's cable structure coming down from the overhead line and landing in that location. Obviously, that has to be moved, and so Holy Cross verified that could be moved, but it puts that zone there both for the removal of the existing picnic structure and the installation of the new gazebo and cleaning that area up. There are a couple of trees that have to come out to make that happen in that location as well. And I believe there's a cottonwood that has to come out for the power, and then there's a spruce that needs to come out for the gazebo.
Is this E-line wiring actual overhead lines?
That would be
No.
proposed in ground to
Okay.
provide holiday lighting, like GFI outlets attached to the pedestrian bridge, so that we don't have to run those 100-foot extension cords back over to the light pole. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that gives a good sense of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Carly, do you want to add anything that I've missed, or anything significant that you can think of?
I think just one thing I was reminded of as we were talking about the tree removal fort that we've discussed with Holy Cross. If you can zoom in right near the restrooms in the museum,
Yeah, my,
Here we go. Oh, wait. Okay.
You can start to see where the utility pole, you were asking where the above or the strung wires are. Yeah, right where your cursor is or was. So those are the below grade. Where your cursor was, right where those lines are meeting, that's where the pole.
okay, here.
Yep, exactly. And so where that pole is where the overhead lines are meeting. And so the swing of the guy wire actually helps to stabilize that better. But the other thing that we're going to be doing is there's currently an overhead wire that's connecting from that pole to the museum.
Mhm.
And conversations recently with Holy Cross, the solution that we think would be a better alternative is actually undergrounding that overhead wire to the museum. So if you see the museum now, there's the, I don't know what it's called, but there's basically the source of electricity to the museum is a pole that sits on the roof. That would be taken off of the roof, and instead there would be a pedestal placed in between the restroom and the museum to run power to the museum.
Okay.
And that's reflected in these drawings, but probably was not brought to your group's review previously because this was a change in the last month or so.
That's
So,
great.
so Carly, what's the, I know we could ask this at the end, but what's the timeline for like that particular scenario that you talked about? Do you know?
For the museum?
Yeah.
Well, I have a little
Or-
description we can provide you with the construction timing. So the tree removal will happen first for the power pole and the relocation
Mhm.
of the wire. Holy Cross will be out probably in the next month or so, as soon as they can get out there with some cleared snow. So
Mhm.
April at the earliest. And that part of the that part can be completed by that point. The connection from the pole to the museum will likely need to be phased a little bit further down the road, simply because in order for us to underground it, we also have to be mobilized to be ready to rip out the concrete that's currently there that's deteriorating and replace it with the new concrete before we can underground that connection to the museum. So that would not likely be an early spring. That would probably be full swing of construction improvement.
So the museum is going to be compromised for visitors for a chunk of time.
I think that we could look into the phasing of how we do that, right? Because when the pole, the connection to the museum will not be severed when the tree mitigation happens.
Right.
So that'll stay. The connection to the museum could potentially stay through construction. I do worry if there will be a conflict of keeping the museum open when some of those other improvements are happening themselves.
Yeah, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, we've got videos that go 24/7 for guests and tourists, and the lights are on, and I'm just asking, so because I'm on the RHS board and I need to kind of let them know.
Yeah. Well, I think the electrical connection would pose an interruption to that, but I think the bigger question is what type of interruption would we have to the museum due to the surrounding construction activities and for safety of visitors.
Yeah.
Some of those improvements might require its closure for a period of time.
Carly?
Yeah.
The other thing is that Redstone has an Easter event on April 16th in the park. So it'd be really good if nothing happened until after that.
We can certainly accommodate that, and I'll jot that down. We with the snow you all have, I would think it's safe to say we could accommodate post April 16th.
Okay, thanks.
When it gets closer, Carly, and you see the you know, this whole thing going on, like with the museum conflicts, could you somehow let Susanna know or somehow let this board know so I can communicate that?
Yeah, that'll absolutely be part of our construction plan.
Okay,
We expect bids to be in, and we will be selecting the contractor by March 30th. And so
okay,
we have an idea of who's been selected. What we're asking for from each contractor is an understanding of some phasing. Like, can we do some of the improvements to one side and leave one side of the park open? So that will be something we're particularly looking at in these bids that we get in. You know, there is some phasing that could happen. There could be the parking that's done at one side before the parking at the other side.
so this project you think will take that full, you know, summer 120, however many days? Is that what you're I mean,
That's what we've budgeted for in terms of timing now. So we're trying to get the contractor lined up and ready to go as soon as snow's melted. And we've allocated time till fall, till first frost. If it could happen sooner, I think there's just a lot of questions in the construction world right now.
I know.
So
Yeah, there
we
is.
have a lot of questions there.
Yeah, I get it. I do get that. Okay.
I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any changes to the playground?
The equipment itself, no, but the organization of the play area, yes. And so, you can see it's a multi-angled side right now in its current condition. And so in the new plan, it's squared up. And so the play equipment itself will be reorganized a bit.
And the two separate playground zones are going to be combined into
Yeah.
one. And part of that is to achieve the from the pedestrian bridge approach down to the boulevard, to be able to add a path there. The swing
Yeah.
set has to move north. And then
Yeah.
once those started moving north, it just made sense to combine the playground mulch area all into one. And all of those landscape timbers are in need of replacement anyway. So yeah, there we go.
Good.
So it ends up being the same equipment, just like Carly said.
And
arranged a little bit
it looks like you're also saving the marble table, just fixing it so it's not sinking into the ground.
differently.
Okay. Any other questions?
There was one comment on the sign, and that I think there might have been a reference that we haven't selected a sign at this time.
Mhm.
We do have our sign standard, and I have an image of it if it's helpful. But we have selected that, and it's in compliance with our sign guidelines for the county.
Okay.
Oh, here's another question.
Mhm.
And maybe Jason knows or Nancy, but is there going to be a kind of like a enclosed bulletin board where we could post things for the community?
That
I
is
don't know
not
the answer to that.
That is not something that came up as a program element during the steering committee process. So
It
that's
sure
right
would
now
be
that-
nice to have a central place where you could have a protected place. You could put up posters or community information, whatever.
It wouldn't be terribly difficult to accommodate something in the vicinity of, say, the restroom, drinking fountain,
Yeah,
kind of in that
anywhere
area
in there
along the
would be
sidewalk.
great.
Mhm.
Because right now we just post them on
I
the
think it's
side
a-
of a building and have to cover them in plastic or whatever.
Any other questions? Comments?
Looks really good to me.
Yeah. I had just, my staff recommendation is for approval. And basically, I would like to have any light fixtures, the final gazebo design, and maybe that signage piece, just kind of forwarded to us just for kind of final check-in. I
Yep.
think, the approval that we give tonight will be fine for going forward, but I want to just make sure that we all are on the same page with those things that we haven't really seen specifically.
Right. Yeah, good.
Since we were talking about the electrical service at the museum, I think it'll be important to really look at that new configuration on the back of the building and see if there's any way we can minimize that, the size of that equipment or the location of that equipment, or kind of figure out how to relieve the building of that burden maybe when we
Mhm.
get to that point. So I'd love to stay in the loop on whatever happens there. But with those conditions, I recommend approval, and with our other standard condition of any other significant changes need to be brought to the attention of the commission. So if everyone's comfortable with that, I could get a motion.
I can move that we accept the plan as presented.
I will second that.
Okay. Great. And all those in favor?
Aye,
I
2 votes.
Great. All right.
Well, thank you so much. We look forward to starting this construction this summer and hopefully getting a little bit of a facelift to this well park. So we're looking forward to starting this.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It'd be great.
Okay, Jason, you can go back to driving.
I wanted to mention, if we're going to adjourn soon, I wanted to mention while Jason's still available, you talked about the caucus presentation. That can always be a tricky situation with HPC on the boulevard. A lot of people that go to caucus, first of all, don't live in the district, and I don't know, it can be contentious. So who would make that presentation? Any clues on that?
It would be me. And I'm
Okay.
happy for any insight that you want to provide me, because I have not presented anything to the caucus in the past. So
Simple is better.
okay. And I think, maybe once I know when we're going to be there,
Yeah.
we can all just have a little chat about any concerns that you might have, or red flags, or things that you think are going to be issues.
I
beforehand.
think, to present it as the guidelines have been in place since whatever date, and, they've been discussed now, and then COVID came, and now they're finally being finalized, and just highlight what you said at this meeting, what you mentioned that you talked to P&Z about.
Okay.
I just think, Susanna, we've talked about that with other board members in the past, how, when you present something to the caucus from the historic viewpoint of designs, people might come in and say, we want to change the whole thing.
Right.
And they, you know what I mean? It can get really thick with a lot of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't have to be that way, but it could be that way. I don't know. I just don't know. So I'm just mentioning it now while it's in front of us.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then what is the board just one quick question. I had it written down. Is there a minimum board membership that we
3
have
is,
to shoot for?
yeah, 3 is a quorum. We
Okay,
can have up to 5 regular members, and right now we have 3 alternates. And I think we just had kind of an emeritus position on the alternates for a while, and that person is no longer around. So basically, if we can get to 5 members, that would be ideal.
so what we have is Kathy, Jason, Nancy, Dorothea.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
I'm up for renewal, so we'll have to see.
Okay, so should that have happened tonight?
Hmm?
Oh, we
Uh,
don't make that
I have
decision.
to apply.
Oh, I got it.
And the
Okay.
the county commissioners choose. I'm sure there
Right.
won't be a problem with keeping Nancy. I mean, Kathy.
Yeah, so that's important. Okay, so should we
Seems
be,
like we could recruit one more person though, huh?
Yeah.
yeah,
we do
that's
need
what I
to
was
get-
wondering.
We do need to do that.
So I have somebody in mind and I'll reach out to that person
Okay.
and see if they have an interest, you know.
Somebody on the
But-
boulevard?
No, actually, that person is in Swiss Village. That's right. How do we want to look at this going forward, do you think?
Well, you don't need to live on the boulevard necessarily. I mean, obviously Dorothy
No.
is, I think
And
it's,
Kathy is, yeah,
yeah, it's a 9-mile, I think a 9-mile radius. So really, just finding people who are interested and want to participate, that's where I would start the first criteria.
so Swiss Village is okay?
Yeah, I don't, yeah. I'd have to look back at the bylaws. I can do that and let you know.
I
It's
would
gonna
think
be-
so, only because Daryl and Jane Mansell didn't live in Redstone either.
Great. And Larry, where does?
Larry lives on the
in my
Mesa.
neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, Larry and Kathy are on the Mesa. So. Okay,
And if we need to make a change to that requirement, we can certainly do that as well.
well, I mean, the closer the better,
Yeah.
is how I've always looked at it, but I just want to double check on that.
Yeah.
Swiss Village and Ranch Acres as well.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay, so I've got a couple people I can reach out to, and it might just be a no way Jose, but I don't know until I know,
Yeah,
Great.
check it out.
Yeah, okay. And then they would need to, what?
There's an application that's available online, and they fill
Okay.
out the application, and then they'll get interviewed by the BOCC and
Right, right.
presumably
Okay.
appointed.
okay,
Good.
Great.
good. Well, that was not too bad.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And so do we probably need to formally adjourn, correct?
Mhm.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All
A
right.
second,
It's been moved and seconded.
And that's
to
all we
adjourn.
need to do.
Okay,
All right.
All right.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
Thanks all.
All right. I will be in touch on what comes next.